I said I really like the pairing of the two works. I called it Films by mistake, but works, video works. I was wondering a slightly different kind of a question to ask, which has to do with the watching surveillance, that is, as researchers, etc., and all of us who sort of do find this a kind of mesmerizing piece. Watching surveillance videos, there is no end to it, right? Meaning, what is the drama of it? I heard you coaxing the Manchester guys into a drama of it, like who's going to steal, etc. But there's a way in which you're just watching it, right? I mean, just like there's endless footage about it, of it, etc. So I was thinking, like, how did you decide that this is the length of your own video? That is, what is one? Because there's a way in which it amounts to nothing. You're just watching constantly with no end in mind, because that is that's surveillance at its purest, right? When you actually defy that there is any particular drama, it's kind of mundane to think that this person's going to steal her socks. In the sense you're just watching it again and again. And the second, I say this because I'm sort of curious about how you decide the length of your particular videos would work. And in the second one, I was so struck, it was actually so moving to watch it. It felt like a low-tech technology as against Israeli sort of night vision goggles. There's just the way in which that whole area has been mapped so thoroughly, as China, you were mentioning. So in the second one, like, when did you decide to stop? Like, what begins, what stops, etc.? It felt like a home movie, that this is what you've actually produced. You've given them a bunch of cameras, and I was thinking of all the folks who gave cameras to indigenous populations in Australia, to Amazonian Indians. This is an older project of distributing cameras and recording histories, etc. So it distinctly felt like there was no drama in the second one. The bigger drama had already happened. The occupation has already happened and continues to happen. So how does one actually, how do you mimic? And I think the corollary was, how do you mimic the boredom of a surveillance video? It's immensely boring to watch it. In the sense one has to think about it as infusing it with some drama, right? So on both ends, I was wondering if you could actually talk about that, because there is paranoia, but there's boredom at the same time, right? These are the two things that work hand in hand. And if one could think about the length, like why 28 in the first, I forgot what the second one is. How long?
An hour.
An hour, exactly. So why an hour? Why not 24 hours of it, right?
Basically, my question was, how do you then structure something like this for a viewing experience? For example, and I'm not necessarily looking for drama or narrative, and I agree that a lot of that narrative is implicit, and we are looking at people looking back at being looked at, and there is context and there's history, and it's not the task of this particular work to foreground that, but to refer to it, fine. But it becomes just the repetitiveness of it. I was wondering if you thought of and then didn't choose to use certain things that might have made it more accessible, in terms of even, the names of the dramatis personae, so who's speaking. So you subtitle maybe with the name of the speaker, because you tell us there are 8 families, you tell us there are 8 locations.
And there were particular locations.
But we can't tell. I don't know if it's been parallelly edited, or if it's mixed up, or if it's sequential. I don't know if what determines the chronology of what we see, but something is determining it. So how are you structuring it? Well, could there be, I would have, I also, because what people are saying, from time to time, the sheer resonance of what they say with many other kinds of, with what is happening there and whatever you know of it, and this, the particularities of it, they are going to affect you as a listener, as a viewer. But beyond a point, the sameness of the visuals and the lack of being able to distinguish between too much, and then there's a certain length to cope with. So it makes for a difficult viewing experience, and which is not to say that I was, so you're in and out of it. And what, so there are different ways, of course, of processing something like this, but I'm just wondering whether you thought of putting it together in any different way.
In terms of process, I think the mundaneness of this endless watching, or this data bank of 24/7 into 47 cameras into forever, is clearly intervened and interrupted by 36 people. That, for us, is the public art project. What you see is a remnant of it, or a documentation. Something happened for those 36 individuals and the operators who softened. I mean, it's also twinned. One guy is constantly flexing his muscles, the other guy is completely softened in the thing. For us, that is the project, or that is one formal stage of a work finished. The second one is sort of how one returns this back to location. I'm just giving you, and as I say this, I hope I can break it down and answer your questions. The second stage was each individual thing was edited roughly into 5 to 7 minute sequences, and they were played back separately in something called Cold Clinic, where we said that the black box, the CCTV control room, is a clinic where we've come to interrogate or diagnose something as endemic as the common cold, in this case CCTV surveillance. So there was that phase of a quick distilling and bringing together about 5 to 10 minute cuts of each thing. And this is how it played back in Manchester. Exactly the same for Jerusalem. It's working with the 8 families. That moment, that 99 minutes, or in some cases 7 hours, or in some cases 43 minutes of filming, when they sat with this device and they engaged with it and produced their own narratives and documentation, and what that activated for us is one concrete phase of the art project. It's happening there, that's the intervention. Then you have this amount of footage, which of course is returned to the families, they all have it. And then you have a show in Jerusalem, which should belong to them. So again, a quick distilling and 12-minute cuts of each family was done. In both cases, then, the material entered our archive, which is Padma, where it's actually been used. In the case of CCTV, there have been essays written on Manchester's regeneration. People have annotated the CCTV footage quite deeply. And in the case of the Palestinian tapes, the Jerusalem tape, they've been used in Al-Quds University and by various people. They use it for research. And then your question, when do you make the choices and distill it into this form? These are just editing choices, and these are, if they work or not, there are choices. It is, in the case of Jerusalem, I agree with you, one has felt this really often. Maybe not name them, but the geography, because it's very tight, and it begins in the nucleus of the old city, and then it goes into East Jerusalem, and then it goes into the city of Silvan, which is being taken and claimed as a city of David, and then it goes into Greater Jerusalem, and then it actually hits the wall, where the wall cut off houses that were in Jerusalem but flipped them and threw them in the West Bank. And then you return back into the claustrophobic old city. So there is a structure. It's quite tight in that sense, or at least in terms of how we chose to edit it, and at the same time make it a film about the city. It does map some very significant things. And the opening shot is the Wailing Wall and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And if there is no context for that, I realize a lot can get lost, because she's talking about the historic 67 war and the Moroccan Quarter and so on. So there are these particularities, but I guess that, how much does one... It's a question. I don't have answers. We made this cut.